Sometimes when a deck is incredibly broken, the player base will collectively adapt, and instead of clamoring for a ban, they clamor for a ban and also do something about it. Bullblader is a card that no one else thought about when it came out. It reads as such. When an attack is declared involving this card and an opponent's monster, you can activate this effect. During this battle involving this monster, neither player takes any battle damage. Also, destroy the opponent's monster after damage calculation. This is an effect that's meant to be in starter deck cards exclusively, because it teaches new players that if you can trade 1-for-1 with your opponent, that's usually pretty good. And it was, hence why Icarus Attack was devastating in Blackwings during their heyday. It was a 2-for-2 even. It's a general gameplay concept that rings true. So why was this card terrible but then a meta staple? And if you like this sort of content, be sure to subscribe, as it helps me out a lot with the new channel. Let's start with Humble Beginnings. This card came out in the Zexal era, where the main way to play the game was Dragon Rulers obliterating everything you wished to live. Despite not being a card actually included in a starter deck, as it was an Abyss Rising common, it held the same design philosophy. Simple effect that trades 1-for-1. It's unfortunately too fair of an effect for modern Yu-Gi-Oh!, or even Yu-Gi-Oh! When it came out, but you can't really fault Bullblader for that. There were cards that could pop a card and make a token to pop on your own field, and on top of that, it was an extra deck monster you could always access. Yeah, Dracossack was just a little really good, and comparing it to Bullblader is a surprisingly fair comparison despite their difference in power levels. One popped itself, one didn't have to. One could be summoned any time in the best deck, the others you had to draw and use your normal summon on. One was in the main phase, the other in the battle phase, etc. There was just no place for Bullblader, with power creep making even Dracossack a pretty mediocre card. So why was it so much better just a year later? Well, you see, Nekroz was a deck. It was not just a deck, it was the best deck of all time up to that point. It could search the entire deck for anything it wanted, and as long as you could activate spells, you could pretty much beat everything else in the format. This was made even better by another card no one ever used before because Rituals sucked until now, Djinn, Releaser of Rituals. Djinn, if it was used as a material to ritual summon, just made sure the opponent couldn't special summon at all, like in no way, shape, or form. The funniest part is that this was in effect stapled onto the player as long as the monster was on the field, not the monster itself. For example, if you negated the ritual monster's effects on the other side of the board, you still couldn't special summon. If you remember my other video on this format, you would know that Snatch Steal was in that format as well. And yet, even with how broken that card was, you still couldn't steal the Djinn card because that still doesn't allow you to special summon. It's the opponent of the person who summoned the card. It's not the opponent of the person who controls the card. And this led to a lot of discussion and a lot of judge calls. So, how do you deal with this? Well, it can't be Dracossack, because you'd have to special summon it, and no deck could easily make it at the time. So that's out of the way. It needs to be a normal summonable card that can just kill a monster whenever it wants. Oh yeah, Bullblader! He wasn't the only one. Even Shock Troops of the Ice Barrier was played for this purpose. And it's an Ice Barrier card that doesn't have that funny white border around it that means it's a good Ice Barrier card, so it's ridiculous it ever saw play. But they all had the same niche of just making sure it could bring you back into the game after your opponent laid down a usually 2300 defense win button. With the banning of Djinn, the niche Bullblader and others had carved out for themselves quickly vanished, and Bullblader fell into obscurity again, respected and never forgotten. If you like this video, go on ahead and watch why Snatch Steal was unbanned for literally just one format.